Community is a word you're going to hear quite often within Filecoin, within Web3. And what does that mean? And I think there's a persona attached to it that I wanted to start the presentation with. And it means collaboration in a way that is different from what you've done in the past. I could tell you that in your previous roles at previous companies, you could say, oh, I was collaborative. I worked collaboratively across teams. But ultimately, within those structures, it was much more competitive than you realize. And now, one of the things that I really want to do for the community is try to enable people to detach from this competitive mindset that they've been brought up with their entire career, because it's collaboration and community that's really going to allow you to be successful within Filecoin specifically. And why I'm so excited to come to ESPA, because not only do I think the ESPA program represents this mindset shift into more collaboration, I think Picnic is probably one of the best in our community at embracing the values of collaboration and how they approach working with Filecoin. So you're now indoctrinated into the community. So what does community mean? It takes a village to be successful within Filecoin, and I would say it probably takes a village in a winery. But if I could start you off with the right mindset and how community is here and the community programs are here to help you along the way to carve out your niche within this ecosystem, I think that's a great place to start. I know we get excited about all the tactical stuff that Joao goes through, and it's so practical to your now. But again, let's start with the mindset, because community really is king. So a little bit about me. Like I said, I just joined the Filecoin Foundation just over a month ago. And really how I see myself in support of you is kind of like a storage provider success manager. And there's so much going on within the ecosystem. Trust me, you cannot keep up with it all. But you want to have awareness so you can make a decision on where you want to dive in, where do you want to get involved, where do you need help. And then conversely, you're going to have blockers, challenges, or opportunities that you need help with. Who do you go to when you need that help, or I need access to a subject matter expert? I'm here trying to be that single throat to choke for you, so you know how to navigate the community. So think about all the things. How do we spoon feed to you so you can keep tabs on all that's going on across the whole Filecoin ecosystem? And then how do you get the help you need for the problems, blockers, or opportunities that you have as a storage provider? And that's really what community, and at least with my role, is all about. I had some, where the community is at today. Claire has covered this. Other people have covered this. TLDR, too long, is just, it's growing. And where I want you to be aware of the metrics that we look at from Protocol Labs Filecoin Foundation, because I think it's going to help dictate maybe some of your choices going forward, especially starting off, because ultimately the more you can contribute to the metrics we track, the more help or interest or support you can get from us along the way. And it's really about, our emphasis right now is on verified deals. So Joao talked about how to get to a verified deal, and we've shared a little bit about what that looks like. So out of all the miner IDs that you may have currently or in the future, how do we fill those up with verified data? And so we on the right-hand side, we track the percentage of verified data within each one of those miner IDs. And then we also look on the left, we look at the total number of miner IDs and how many of those are doing verified deals. And so we want those up and to the right, and you coming into the ecosystem and the community are really one of the core ways that we're going to increase both of our, these are probably our two most important metrics from a network growth standpoint that we want you to be aware of, because we are so excited for you to contribute to that success. We covered just number of clients doing over 100 TIBs, also growing, and whether it's you contributing your own clients to the ecosystem, which would be great, or you just supporting these on the onset, also very critical to just make sure that these lines keep going up and to the right. And as I said, I'm here to serve. It is too hard. You shouldn't have to ever feel that you're in isolation or disconnected from what's going on. The storage provider community group is the backbone of everything that Filecoin is doing. And whether it's new program releases, new project releases, new tools, I mean, there's something coming out most every week. And so I'm here and my team is here to serve you, to giving you that drip of information, allowing you this discretion to dive in where you see fit. So more tactically, what does that mean? It means roadmaps, updates. How do we let you know what's coming, when it's coming, and why it's relevant? We do a lot, as Clara mentioned earlier, we do a lot of events, from ESPA events to Phil events to individual events that you may want to do as a storage provider. It's our job to make sure that all these get supported. It's a high value time spent opportunity to make sure that you're getting the most out of your time or working with events that you'd like to see created in your local region. A lot of this is going to be networking with other storage providers. This is the core of what ESPA is about. It's not about just you meeting Picnic, which is great. It's you meeting the other participants in this cohort so you guys can grow together. And there's so many other storage providers around the globe that could value your specialty, whatever that may be. And there's also alpha, beta programs that may be interest to you in your business. How do you become aware of those opportunities so you can dive into hey, I want to be part of the Ceiling as a Service pilot, or hey, I really want to get early hands-on experience with the Filecoin virtual machine that's coming out. Or perhaps you just need help from a subject matter expert in Lotus or Venus or whatever you so choose to be working on, or you need help with Boost. There's so many technical questions that you may have along the way. Don't suffer in silence. Reach out, and we'll connect you with the right people, or get you the right materials to help smooth the process for you. And the reason why we're all here, so again, my job is to keep your finger on the pulse. And so I don't have too many insights a month into the job, but I did want to give a little bit of perspective on where I see us in the adoption lifecycle. And at the end of the day, where I think we are at right now is our top priority as an ecosystem is getting verified data onto the network. There are much larger visions and aspirations we have for redefining how the internet operates. Love that. But at the same time, we have to be realistic on what our priority is right now, and that's getting at verified deals. So I wanted to give a perspective on just my thoughts on where we are in the adoption life cycle. And I'm still shocked at just how much data, the demand for data storage is growing. It is crazy to me. So the fact that enterprises are going to need, from 2020 to 2025, almost 200% more data storage. The amount of zettabytes, 175 zettabytes of data will be generated in 2025, up from 50 zettabytes in 2020. And then this is just going to compound. And then when I think about beyond 2025, think about all the use cases we can't even think of yet that could also demand data storage. And that would just ratchet up the numbers even more. And so the tailwinds that we're experiencing were really shocking to me. And it's frankly the reason I took this job with the Filecoin Foundation. We'll have an IDC report coming out in a couple weeks where we surveyed enterprises. Really interesting statistics of what enterprises are saying about decentralized storage as an alternative. What I was most impressed with, if you read in between the tea leaves, is that the survey of respondents really knew what decentralized storage was. It just goes to show that maybe we're through more of the education phase than we realize, at least with some of the educated enterprise, CIO level types, CTO level types, where the survey went out to. But again, you see the value proposition of Filecoin coming through here, that we're well positioned to take the market once we get to a certain level of maturity. And I think as anyone who's doing sales BD will tell you, or if you talk to the Picnic sales team that's here, sales are not the problem. It's actually having enough resources to put all the clients onto the network within a timely manner that's probably the bigger bottleneck. And so, when you break down the adoption lifecycle curve, it goes innovators, early adopters, fast followers, early majority, late majority. And I think we're in this part where we're coming out of the early, like we're neck deep in the early adopters phase of the adoption lifecycle, and we're going into the fast follower stage, which I define as the value players. And I'll give you a little perspective of kind of how I break down each of these personas within the life cycle. So the Web3 natives to me were always the early innovators. Like decentralization is so part of their DNA that it makes sense to me that they wouldn't even consider an Azure solution or a Google solution when looking to store their NFTs, because that's part of their ethos. So they come to us for that type of level of solution, whether it's OpenSea or NFT.storage, that it's just part of their DNA, and they want to fully embrace decentralized technologies. And so this was naturally your early adopters. And we have, 35 million NFTs stored on NFT.storage already. And then when I go to the early adopters, these are the people I call passionate about data, where they see data as almost a child that they have in their family. And I refer to the UC Berkeley case where it's the Particle Accelerator Lab. And I love putting myself in the shoes of that client and what that conversation must have been like. And as I do go through that little exercise, I see this person whose lifelong mission is legacy, his or her legacy is about this data and preserving that data. And when you have that mindset and an attachment to the data itself, you would do anything, just like you would for a child, to make sure it lives and prospers. And so when I think about going to that client with the opportunity that is Filecoin, it makes sense to me that they would do, because of their affinity for the data set, they would do anything they could to preserve it at all costs. So that's what I see, like the data passionate people. And that's why universities are such a great target right now for Filecoin, because it's the people who own the data right now are thinking about their legacy, and they're so committed to this is for the greater good of humanity. Filecoin gives them a viable option to store it in more perpetuity at a much lower cost. But I do think we're on the precipice of going more into the value players. And I'm totally going to change this slide into Joel's slide that had the cool animations on it, because that was really awesome. So my slide looks so two-dimensional in comparison, but will be remedied after this presentation. But you look at 80% of researchers' time is often lost in data wrangling. You have the cost factor, which is, I have limited budgets. What do I do with this? I don't want to waste all my budget on data storage. And usability. This is a quote. They said, we want scientists to keep their data and not have to delete it. We also want to create a system to empower them to use their data. And I love them, that empowerment to use the data. And that Filecoin is giving them that usability in a way that they can't get from traditional solutions. So it's this mix, like when you look at time, cost, usability, these are, when you put these up on a board for them, this hits home the value we're trying to give them to a point where it's undeniable that in compared to your next best alternative, Filecoin truly separates. And I look at this example as this is the precipice of what's going to lead and prime the pump for all organizations to truly consider Filecoin going forward. The savvy, agnostic viewer who sees the value we're creating for the organization just being undeniable and will force their hand into the positive direction for us. So a little bit about me. Before Filecoin, I was at Coinbase. Before Coinbase, I was at IBM for 8 years. So I worked on blockchain, I worked on cloud, worked on AI. But I do remember, we had this annual conference every year called Think, and the CEO would always give a keynote. And at the time, Ginny Rometty was the keynote. And if there's one thing IBM was really good at, it was seeing the future. Executing and delivering on that future, well, we'll save that topic for another time. But I did think Ginny really nailed the future of data. This is back in 2017, this quote. And she said, 20% of the world's data is searchable. Anybody can get to that 20%, but 80% of the world's data, which is where I think the real gold is, whether it's decades of underwriting, pricing, customer experience, risk loans, that is all with our clients. You don't want to share it, that is the gold. And when I first joined Filecoin, what made sense to me is this the potential, the framework that is available that could unlock basically data monetization, where now I can, like enterprises could use their data on Filecoin to make it more usable to a wider audience. And how can we open up those types of subscription models? Through retrieval markets, through subscription models, where the client now has more choice as to, I don't have to just keep this in my firewall. Now I can expose it, monetize it, and share this data in a way that I couldn't before. We're not there yet, but I do think this is in the short of this is within a 5-year possibility for us. And then, when I love the conversation of going to an enterprise saying, hey, with Filecoin, not only do we store your data, we can expose your data so it's consumable by certain audiences that you could find interesting. And I think Ginny had the vision correctly back in 2017, but it frankly needed Filecoin in place and IPFS in place for that reality to come to fruition. So to me, that's part of my own personal story where I'm making the connection as to what the real value is. And I think once we get to this stage, you're going to see a whole new wave of adopters come into the Filecoin ecosystem. This is probably a slightly different take on one of Joel's slides on how Filecoin works. But I always try to break things down into oversimplified terms as to the stages that we go through. And I take a client perspective. And the reason I take a client perspective is I'm trying to, my goal here is always to help you keep your finger on the pulse of where we are today, where we're going tomorrow, and how that's going to impact you and your business as a storage provider. So an oversimplistic view is, hey, client begins negotiations, they provide their data, it gets delivered to providers, it gets sealed and stored, integrate proof of storage begins, and then you have the retrieval opportunity. And while that all works today, what we're working towards internally or across the ecosystem and community is a way to make that a more frictionless experience. Everything we're doing from data onboarding to Filecoin Plus and governance to retrieval markets and Filecoin Saturn is trying to make it more frictionless, giving you more opportunities to get involved. So just in the next, I don't know, there's a formatting error, but you're supposed to see release dates on where all these projects have major releases over the next 2 quarters. And Boost from Marketplace, they already have their new platform out and is being used. Picnic's using it. More and more people are using Boost for deal execution. Filecoin Plus is doing an ongoing pilot and constantly redoing their governance models to make it more efficient, time to data cap improvements, etc. We talked about data onboarding and all the tools from Singularity to Picnic Basket that are really trying to make the bridges here more seamless from a data ingestion point of view. We have a whole new set of compute services from compute over data to sealing as a service, both coming out in pilot this quarter with releases next quarter. And first next year or also in Q4 and Q1, you're going to see Filecoin Virtual Machine, Filecoin Saturn for retrieval marketplaces, all of which are going to make this a more enterprise-ready solution, and that makes our whole ecosystem work more seamlessly and valuable. And community is the key here. And again, I go back to this mindset of what does it mean to be a community member, and specifically a storage provider, because you are the heart and soul of Filecoin, and we got to make sure that you're successful and plugged in. I look at Web 2 in particular. Web 2 and all the public cloud providers really missed community. They started off with hope, but then it was failed because loyalty became something that you bought. And how you bought loyalty in public cloud was Your large enterprise had a large agreement with AWS or Google, whoever it was, and because of that large contract, you were basically forced into using those services. And each company would just have their dedicated public cloud stack that's what they worked on. And now, we're trying to break down those models where you want to be here, you want to collaborate, and this is the more of the mantra, the ethos that we're trying to bake into how we do everything across the ecosystem, which is community driven. So what is the community doing? They're bringing deals to the network, they're working on the technology, they're making sure Filecoin scales, and they're making sure that everyone is participating, collaborating as much as they can. I still think there's more opportunity to be less competitive and more collaborative, but the fact that you're at ESPA, learning from Picnic especially, I think sets you up for that mindset more than anything else you could be doing today. And what I love about storage providers is on a per person basis, there's no one with more stake in the game in Filecoin than the storage provider. You have, even from a Protocol Labs, Filecoin Foundation, I don't invest in hardware. I'm not out there doing deals. Like, no one else in the ecosystem on a per capita basis is risking more or has more stake in the game than the storage providers today, and that is something to me that should be absolutely respected. Other things storage providers are doing today, I want to give you a sense of the landscape because being here today shows me that you're in for a dime. And I want you to be successful, so when we have our events 5 years from now, you're attending those events, you're a major player within the Filecoin ecosystem. So in for a dime, in for a dollar. So let's talk about what other storage providers are doing across the ecosystem today on a global basis. They're raising money. They're raising money aggressively. And why they're doing that for a variety of reasons. They're trying to increase their footprint, they're hiring more talent, they're acquiring Filecoin to post collateral for larger enterprise deals. They're buying hardware. They're focused on client growth, which is doing more, getting more clients, doing more BD, closing deals, getting more verified data onto the network. So active in this space. And then finally, they're building. They're increasing their sealing capacity. They're going to participate in sealing as a service. They're sharing code on GitHub, commenting on GitHub, looking at alphas and betas that we're releasing across the ecosystem, making sure it works for them, contributing where they can, always focused on building because the more frictionless we can make these tools and experience, the faster we can get from a client interest to a verified deal on the network. And I think that's where everyone's going to benefit from that time going down as much as possible. And what I ask for you is to get involved. I'm here to make sure it's easy for you to get involved, you have a platform to get involved, and you have ways to get involved. What I recommend that you all to do is when you think about community and its collaborative nature over competitive, what will elevate you in this community more than anything else is having a specialty or a place of value. That could mean you're focused on life science and you bring life science deals to the table. You could focus on universities, you could focus on gaming. Those are all specialties which would make you unique and stand out within an ever-growing community. You could also contribute code. You could just be a technical expert where you're trusted enough to contribute to the newest releases, comment on GitHub. That's super valuable too, and trust me, it will immediately elevate you within the community if you're seen as someone looking at and examining problems, making things better. Or you could just be someone who's a silent player who is able to take copies that are of large size and deliver on them. You could have, hey, I have a deal, it requires a 100K fill collateral, and I need it sealed by the end of the week. Do you have enough capacity and bandwidth to take this on for me this week? Yes, great, done. Some people just need execution fast, and if you can deliver on that, that's a way to develop a niche. So whatever that niche means to you, especially starting off, there's no better way to elevate yourself within the community than kind of finding what your specialty is, and focusing on it. I do think the generalist storage provider, it's going to be hard to win. Like, there's so many other players at scale, and I wish you all to get to that scale if that's what you want to do. But until that point, find ways to specialize, outsource what isn't core to your expertise, and there's 1,000 ways to do that, and I think that'll help you out as you get started. And more importantly, pay it forward. And Phil Singapore, Juan Benet challenged everyone in the audience to let's grow this ecosystem by the end of the year. So you guys, you're invested, you're here. How do you invite 6 people to the ecosystem by the end of the year? Get them contributing. Could be a client, could be a developer, could be another storage provider, whatever it is. How do you contribute your verse into growing the community? If every one of us here invites 6 people, gets 6 people into the ecosystem by the end of the year, that really begins to change our metrics in a meaningful way. And finally, how do you get involved? How do you start engaging with the community? We have lots of, we have Twitter, we have Slack, we have YouTube, we have websites, we have event calendars. So I think the big ones, you're going to find that most of us are on Slack. Slack is my preferred tool to making sure I can drop the relevant updates to you asynchronously. And let's make sure that you get exposure to what's going on, the releases, the roadmaps, the updates, the blogs, the events. I need a channel to reach out to you and at least give you exposure whether you respond or not. And then also, you got to use the events and think strategically about the events you want to participate in, whether it's the Phil event in Lisbon that's coming up at the end of the month. If you're European-based, let's get you involved in there. Let's get you invited to the right events. There's the whole storage provider track that we do. These are great ways to meet other storage providers, meet the hardware vendors that we work with, or just meet other investors and players that we continually invite to these events to get you plugged in. And then that's what's really great about the events we do. It allows you, it's a cheat code to getting plugged in to all the people within the community, just like ESPA is. So let's take that to the next level. And we do events all over the world all the time, so there should be plenty of opportunity for you. But let's start with the hashtag enterprise-sp.working group. That's my primary channel for making sure you get exposure to what everyone else is seeing. There's nothing that's hidden. We want full transparency. We want to keep you involved, keep your finger on the pulse. And Slack is the primary means we have for doing that. We have ESPA Slack channels too that we'll absolutely post updates to, but it's going to take repetition. You're going to hear messages multiple times from us, but through that repetition, you're going to get a sense for what's coming and why it's coming and how it relates to your business more than anything else. And with that, I welcome you to the community. I encourage you to be collaborative. Try to shed that competitive past. You don't know how much it stays with you. And I'd say that's probably been my biggest takeaway from my first month with the foundation is you don't realize how ingrained that competitive mindset has been with you over your previous career, because the true nature of Web3 and collaboration is new, and it's a new paradigm, and that's why you joined, but there's still a lot of work to be done to make sure that you're as collaborative as possible, because it does take a village and a winery. So thank you all.